has been bought by some hedge funds out there who go, you know what, at 160, this is looking pretty good. And yes, even instant noodle stocks, the companies that have been sort of pummeled by the energy cost crisis, get into those too.
And Anthony, how much of this kind of depends on what we see from the central banks, right? It's funny, depending on who you are, some people still think maybe a 60% of a hike before the end of the year still looks okay. Does this very much depend on what the details are of this deal and how meaningfully we see the energy outlook change?
Yeah, very much so. So we see U.S. average retail gas prices are still about 30% higher than when the war started. And the U.S. is materially drawing into their inventories as well to keep those prices even at those levels. So the duration of the war is a key input into the inflation decision making. That being said, though, we are under the wash kind of regime where he tends to look through these volatile elements of inflation. So there is a risk that the market is overstating the impact of oil into his inflation calculations, and that is going to be a key part of what the Fed discusses. If the Fed says that energy prices are considered a transitory element to inflation, equity markets will take that really well. And to be honest, markets pricing at the moment is in that direction. Inflation swaps are kind of restrained, and rates volatility is very restrained. So this provides the kind of macro backdrop for the kind of equity gains that we're seeing at the moment.
Ruth, of course, we've been watching the Japanese yen. What's been interesting is that despite the upside that we got in other currencies, say even the Aussie or the Korean won in the previous session as we got the Iran peace deal, the reaction was pretty muted here in Japan. How are we setting up for the Bank of Japan policy decision today?
Yeah, there was one pair that really stood out yesterday in the 24 hours of trading, at least in the Asian session. People were asking that question, are you looking at dollar yen? It's still at 160 when everything else is virtually rallying against a dollar under peace agreement. And that shows you the sheer amount of pressure that is still on the BOJ to hike rates. We know that a rate hike is baked in today, and so all eyes will be on that. But that said, the question now is how much is enough? Because at 160, traders are signaling that one hike is certainly not enough. They're demanding more. JGB yields are still high. And if the BOJ doesn't prove hawkish enough, as judged by the investment community, we will continue to see pressure on the yen.
Anthony, in the meantime, we see another leg higher when it comes to SpaceX. Does this give kind of a further underlying resilience to the rebound that we see in AI stocks and tech stocks?
I can only speculate that the gains that SpaceX has given the kind of risk-seeking retail that would have invested in it, you have had 40% in 2 days, that will accelerate the risk appetite of retail coming back into Asia. It's the same investment community that has been buying the dips all the way through, right, into the kind of labor market-related wobble of last week. We've seen the retail community have very strong holding hands here, diamond hands as you call them, and that community has been richly rewarded. And they're going to continue to deploy capital as long as the AI story remains intact.
Anthony Stevens there, and our chief correspondent for FX and rates in Asia, Ruth Carson. And of course, much more coming up on today's Bank of Japan decision. We'll have analysis with economists from Bank of America and ING. Also joining us later is former BOJ board member Sayuri Shirai.
Yeah, Sherry, we've got some breaking news crossing the Bloomberg when it comes to BlackRock shedding another 200 jobs. It looks like they are actually adopting what looks like a regular cycle of cuts. Larry Fink said to be embracing a more continual cycle of right-sizing. The world's largest asset manager just embarking on that latest round of job cuts. BlackRock eliminating just under 1% of its workforce. It's about 200 employees, according to people familiar with the matter. This comes after BlackRock trimmed headcount 3 times over the past 18 months. So measured cuts does, but that regularity helping redefine culture at the firm that's grown with some pretty major acquisitions over the past few years. We're hearing that the latest round includes roles from investment operations to technology, according to these people that have given us that information, including affecting the private financing arm as well. Let's get back to our top story. The details of the US-Iran peace deal, of course, are very scant. The former US Special Envoy for Syria, Joel and Rayburn. More ahead on the Asia trade. This is Bloomberg.
What up, y'all? It's the KRISTOPHER KW podcast. KW speaking, signing in, setting up here. It's that time, y'all. See if I can get my camera to work. All right. We got some background light here. So fix that real fast. Alrighty then. Okay, y'all. If you're new here, this is the KW Podcast. I'm a financial advisor, and I provide update up to the hour, minute market information at a time when I like to trade. Works out well for my style of management and the strategies we offer here. If you watched my last video from yesterday, you'll see my calls were right on. And so, do a little victory lap here, Trump style. Anyway, we always got to be grateful for blessings we get and never take it for granted. Because that's when the account starts going. And that's a no-no. Okay, so anyways, we're probably just going to not have much information today. We haven't had any escalations. Israel hasn't, flipped out and bombed anything yet, so things are looking good. Look at the 5-day chart here. This is on the S&P 500 futures. This is over the last 5 days, so we're getting the market stepping up here. Got a leg up right here in the initial news. Then we got another leg up on Sunday, which is Monday for Asia, and then another leg up today. All right, let's hear what's going on here. Sounds like you got something going on with France.
A couple of mines that they've already found, but it's essentially ships are starting to go out now. On Friday, it'll be completely open.
President Trump discussing efforts to reopen the Strait of Hormuz by Friday during a bilateral meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron. Of course, we continue to watch the implementation risks around this deal. In the meantime, though, risk assets have been rallying. We are talking about U.S. stocks rallying with that risk on trade, the cyclical rotation back in play into tech, into crypto as well. Right now, we are seeing a little bit of downside when it comes to the future space. Nikkei futures falling 0.4%. But this, of course, after Nikkei stocks rallied to a record high. We're seeing a little bit more upside when it comes to crude prices, but we're still holding at around that $81 a barrel level. Let's get more on the U.S.-Iran agreement and bring in Bloomberg Politics editor Laura Davison joining us now from Washington. Perhaps the market's reflecting some of that skepticism and whether or not this U.S.-Iran deal will actually last. Where are we at now?
Yeah, there's a lot of skeptics out there, both about, kind of what's in this deal, if this is a durable deal, if it will be signed, in fact, on Friday, and if the Strait of Hormuz will actually be opened the way that Trump has characterized it by Friday. Even just yesterday, he was saying, ships, start your engines. The oil is now flowing. The White House, was a little bit more cautious today, saying it would take days, if not weeks, to really restore traffic through the strait. But we're hearing a lot of mixed messages from the administration, both on how quickly we could see the contours of this deal. That Trump said it would be released, sometime Friday or later. We heard, but also from a senior administration official that it could come as soon as 24, 48 hours from now. So there's still a lot of behind the scenes kind of work happening. That there was an announcement of a deal really before some of the details had been worked out. And again, this is really sort of a preliminary agreement. For what we understand of what this deal has, sort of an agreement to start the talks, an agreement to restart the flow of traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, but all of those more thorny details about Iran's nuclear program and sort of what a more lasting peace in the region looks like, none of that has been figured out as of late.
And we saw earlier President Trump talking to French President Emmanuel Macron. How are European allies feeling about this deal right now?
Not at all optimistic. Quite a 180 from what we're seeing from the White House. That they are quite skeptical that the energy flows will start up the same way that Trump has characterized them. They're also have some concerns about where Israel fits into this, as well as strikes in Lebanon. Some countries have been hesitant to send in some of the support, minesweepers and things like that, until they have assurances that that Lebanon will not continue to be attacked as it has been via Israel. So we're sort of seeing again, much like we saw in the early stages of this war, where the U.S. had a lot of confidence and European allies really hanging back, waiting to see exactly how all of this will play
baby.
out. That's exactly what we're seeing this week. Lots of chatter on the sides of the G7 about
got a little
what
extra
may be
pep in
happening
his
over the
step.
next
You see
5 or
that?
6 days.
To your point on Lebanon, what's been the implication on the U.S.-Israel relationship so far, given this conflict?
We've really seen, sort of a falling out between Netanyahu and Trump. They went into this war hand in hand.
Right.
It was a joint
Netanyahu
effort.
could chill out.
And there was lots of reporting that shows that
Even I'm like
Trump and Netanyahu,
saying
had
something
some
here,
key
and I'm
conversations
usually
ahead
on
of
the
this
side of
that really
Israel.
led them into it. But we had, Trump just yesterday, kind of referring to Netanyahu as a very difficult person to work with. They're really not on the same page. The U.S. is saying that, look, Israel doesn't necessarily need to be involved in this peace deal. But we've seen time and time again, including as recently over the weekend, that as a deal was coming together, if there are more strikes from Israel's side into Lebanon against Hezbollah, that has continued to be a point that has derailed peace talks throughout this process. So this is, really sort of a great partnership that we've seen fray over the past 3 months or so.
A Bloomberg Politics editor Laura Davison with the latest, and let's bring in for some more analysis on the situation. Joel Rayburn is a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute Center for Peace and Security in the Middle East. He also previously served as a United States Special Envoy for Syria. Really great to have you with us. And as Laura sort of contextualized, this is more of a deal to try and work towards a more substantial deal. The details are very scant at this point, but we know that the flashpoint, even in the last few days and over the weekend, and will probably continue to be Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel is keeping its army in Syria and in Lebanon for now. And we even heard from President Netanyahu saying that, Prime Minister Netanyahu, I should say, saying that he doesn't know what that deal is going to entail. Are they going to find agreement on the issue of Hezbollah?
I think that, well, that's a good question. I think that's the question of the hour. But I mean, what the MOU essentially is, in the most immediate sense, is it's an extension of the current ceasefire for at least 60 days, while they go into technical talks about the longer term issues, including the nuclear program, financing of terrorism, and so on. And it's also an opening of the strait,
blinding me in those unflattering
by the Iranians to refrain from attacking shipping going through the strait, and it's a commitment by the U.S. that if the Iranians will do that, then they will lift the blockade on Iranian vessels. Now, this will all go haywire if vessels start to go through the channel that's close to Oman that the U.S. has helped to clear, and then they're struck either by drones, missiles, attack boats, or mines. That would throw the entire deal. It would derail it all, let alone what would happen in Lebanon. So the Iranians, the stakes are high for the Iranians to meet those commitments. It does come down to, though, question beyond that of in Lebanon, will the Iranians compel their proxy, Hezbollah, to refrain from attacking northern Israel and Israeli positions inside Lebanon? Because that is the U.S. expectation.
To your point, you say the Iranians are going to try and really push the boundaries and the contours of what's been agreed to, or what will be agreed to under this preliminary MOU. Does that give you the indication that perhaps they have a bit more leverage? Because the whole way through, it has felt increasingly like President Trump is more keen to get an off-ramp than perhaps the Iranian side is.
I think people could have argued that before last week when President Trump did something I think the Iranian regime wasn't expecting, which is that he went back to military strikes. He showed he was willing to go back to military strikes. They were pretty robust late last week, and I think that surprised the Iranians. That's probably why you got this final Iranian agreement to sign the MOU. Now, but as you say,
2.0.
In my own experience, watching the Iranians for more than 2 decades, yes, they do try to change the goalposts as you get close to the implementation of an agreement. They begin to try to relitigate points that were already closed. They try to raise up new issues, and they try to stretch the boundaries of the deal to get as much as they can, because they think at that point the other side, as you're approaching the implementation of a deal, they think the other side then has an interest in seeing the deal through, and that's when they can get extra concessions. I think those extra concessions they would push for might include slowing down reopening, slowing down a guarantee, for example, that all the mines have been cleared. They might try to push for more unfreezing of assets if there are unfreezing of assets already attached in the agreement. And they would try to push for more limitations on the Israelis in Lebanon. I mean, they would like to see the U.S. Say publicly commit to an Israeli withdrawal from Lebanon.
And Israelis need to commit to boundaries on what they're going to do.
There are those kind of 11th hour
so it doesn't escalate out hand
changes that the Iranians try to stuff into the deal.
Not just the Iranians, but both sides.
I mean, I'd be surprised if the Iranians take steps that would just wholly derail the deal, because there's so much in their interest to have the deal. And I think after last week, they have to be afraid that President Trump can turn back to military force if they don't.
If Iran gets all or even some of the things that you just detailed, how do you think that goes down with the foreign policy hawks in the president's own party?
Well, probably not too well, but that's why I don't see the administration going that route and conceding to the Iranians the large-scale unfreezing of assets. What the Iranians want, the estimates are that about $24 billion in Iranian assets that are frozen in various places, and the Iranians were pushing for all of it. They were pushing for half of it up front before they do anything, and the administration's been pretty consistent at saying they will not exceed any unfreezing of assets until the Iranians have done their end of implementation. If the Iranians were to try to push and to keep the Strait open to push for more unfreezing of assets, I don't think that would be looked at too kindly here in the U.S.
What are you expecting and watching out for in terms of, and I think you hint on that, the sequencing of how this deal progresses, right, over the next 60 days?
I think, look, the Iranians, there's a risk that the Iranians will try to draw the U.S. into talking about talking, and to change the parameters of what they're talking about. So the Iranians are famous at getting into a negotiation and saying, well, issue X is all we're here to talk about. We're not at all going to talk about issues Y and Z, even though they may have committed to that beforehand. So they try to argue to take things off the table. This is how they drew the Obama administration into 2 years of talks before they signed the JCPOA. There's just no reason, given the leverage mismatch, the military mismatch, the economic pressure mismatch, for the U.S. to be drawn into that kind of just absolutely interminable negotiation. So I think it'd be very good for the president to stick with the 60-day window once it's established and make clear that he would not be inclined to get to the end of the 60 days without some sort of progress, without some sort of resolution. But that's the risk. That's what the Iranians will try to do. They'll try to just extend the thing indefinitely to try to get, because they think they can get to the U.S. midterms, and that the political pressure on the administration will be too heavy to have a credible return to force and sanctions and so on.
Do you think we've had a meaningful gain at the end of this if this deal progresses as the contours kind of, would want it to? Do you think we've ended up in a better place for the United States compared to the 2015 deal?
I think you're on the way to there. Yes. Materially speaking, the Iranian regime is militarily weaker than it was. I mean, look, one of the problems, and the reason why it took years for the
statistically.
Obama administration to get to the
Whoa,
JCPOA
no.
nuclear agreement.
We
is because
decimated
those
their
negotiations
military.
that
Their
the Obama
military's
administration were doing with the
non-existent.
Europeans and the UN were never backed by a credible threat of force, and they weren't really backed by much economic pressure in the form of really tight sanctions. I think President Trump has shown he's willing to do both, so he has that up his sleeve that he can use. So his negotiation will be backed by the threat of military pressure and economic pressure in a way that wasn't true before. Also, what he's got is that Hezbollah in Lebanon, back then in 2015, Hezbollah really posed essentially an existential threat to our Israeli allies. This time, not so much. They are a nuisance, they're an operational threat, but they're not a strategic and existential threat as they were before. So the Iranians are playing with fewer cards. The new card they have is the Strait of Hormuz, but we'll see how much they can get out of it.
Joel, really great to have you with us. Joel Rayburn,
who's
a senior fellow for the Centre for Peace and Security in the Middle East at the Hudson Institute. More ahead here on the Asia Trade. This is Bloomberg.
Okay. That's funny. No. Here's what's going on. Okay. This is a bigger picture than just the recent escalation in Iran. The Irani people actually like America and Israel. It's the Irani government. And the Irani government is now fractured. And, the Ayatollah is basically passed away, dead. Almost all of his major generals and leaders, they took out their Navy, their Air Force, their radar system, their missile systems. They got missiles still, but that's because they're getting help, from their allies. But they're limited on that. The nuclear powder that Trump wanted to get at their intelligence discovers buried under miles of rubble. So it's inaccessible. Even if they wanted to get it, if they start digging on it, they know where it's at. The satellite will see them. So, that's just a non-issue. That would be a violation of the peace deal, too. And, what will happen then? Just like the gentleman said, after the most recent bombing, I think they got the memo. That's why I was so adamant in my last video that this is the deal. This one's going to stick because if they go back again, Trump is just going to completely annihilate him. And after the last one, I think that one really stung. So hold your positions, y'all, but keep an eye out. If I see something happen, I will make a posting. So check my YouTube channel and set the alert button. That way you can get alerts whenever I post something. And when you see me posting on Whitney Financial podcast, then make sure to check that. Now let's check real fast here on oil. See how it's doing. Probably going down more. Remember I was saying calling a 50% gain on the oil. So let's see what this is.
Administration moving towards completing the plan to release 172 million barrels to ease fuel prices. And still ahead, central banks contending with the inflation and energy picture as well. The BOJ expected to hike today. The bigger test could follow when the deputy governor stands in for Governor Wader at the media conference.
All right. Looks like in addition to the news, which the market starts pricing in based on expectations, and Trump is taking the action to use the reserve to flood the market with surplus oil. The reserve only can do a small dent, but it's enough to move the price when it's already escalating. It's at a tipping point, so it won't take a lot of supply to make a big difference right now. So that's a smart business choice. That's why we had Trump in office. Now, here's the strategy moving forward. Are y'all ready? Yeah, if you don't understand it, just write it down. It's called sell the news strategy. When you sell the news, the market So now we have a peace deal announced, but the peace deal doesn't become official until I believe it's the 26th. No, this Friday. So the market's going to creep up all the way until this Friday. As you can see, look at the chart here. It's doing this typical leg up, as they call it. Market's taking a leg up. It's like stepping stones. Leg up, leg up. So we can see this pattern continue fundamentally probably until the end of this week, until they sign it. And once they sign it, you sell it as fast as you can, because that's why they call it sell the news, and that's what they do. That's what traders do. So it's called buy the rumor, sell the news. The rumor is we got a trade deal. I mean, a ceasefire and a permanent long-term agreement with the Iranians and Trump and America and Israel. The news, the actual news. So we've already bought the rumor. We're gonna see here, and I imagine this is on a daily chart, so it's pretty much along. Australian dollar, Japanese yen is a proxy of the S&P 500. So we're gonna see it probably go up. Probably go all the way up to here, up to the 114.5566 level, or 114.55. 55.66, somewhere in that area. That's your target. So look,
after
as I said,
a string of 3 consecutive
Friday
hikes that we've seen so far this year, that the RBA.
So Friday, we sell the news. Okay, y'all? If you want to be conservative, sell it on Thursday. Thursday around this time. I'll be doing my show again. So tune in like about this time. Or usually, I don't usually get it posted because it goes through a review process until about 7:30.
We had that strength on the Korean won and also the Aussie dollar. When it comes to the Bank of Japan policy decision, the expectation right now is for a 25 basis point hike to 1%. This would be the highest level since 1995, and the first move after its December rate hike. What will be interesting will be that this is a very unusual meeting where the BOJ Governor Ueda is actually hospitalized. So it will be his deputy governor Uchida who will give out the press conference. What sort of message will he send will be key for markets to sort of figure out the monetary path for the BOJ. Let's actually discuss all of this with Bank of America Head of Japan Economics, Izumi Devalier. Izumi, so good to see you. It's been a couple of years.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. It's good to be here.
What a great day to be back, right? I mean, especially when the BOJ is almost certainly going to move.
Yeah.
Is that your expectation, and why would they be doing it now?
Yeah. So basically, a hike to 1% at this meeting is 98% priced in by the markets. I think, if you look at the inflation numbers, yes, the headline inflation has been falling, partly on the back of government subsidies, but the Bank of Japan's underlying measure, excluding these distortions, is still running at 2.8%. So inflation pressure is still very strong. And the Bank of Japan, I think, is quite firm in its conviction that it needs to continue adjusting interest rates higher, because currently, with inflation so high, real rates are negative.
It's been very gradual, which has been one of the key reasons why we see so much pressure on the Japanese
sell the news
yen.
here.
What are you expecting from Deputy Governor Uchida today?
That's why you sell the news.
I think, again, because the hike is such a done deal, I think the focus is on his communications around the path forward. I think for the communications to materially move the markets and the yen to firm, we would need some kind of further commitment that the Bank of Japan is really leaning towards a faster hiking pace. But I think our view is that kind of hawkish surprise is going to be very hard to deliver. Markets are already pricing in quite a bit of hikes going forward. We have the second hike this year priced in 55% by October. So I think it's hard for them to commit. We'll see. They're going to leave the path open and basically hint that they might be considering.
Okay. There's not much going on. All the drama, the excitement in the market has already, the dust has settled. People are already in their positions. It's kind of we're in the holding period now. Like I said, I expect the market to continue to have it step up, but we're about 50% into the move. Don't forget, buy the rumor, sell the news. Listen to my strategy. Don't forget to like and subscribe. In my prior video, I promised that one thing I need to make a correction because I said that I had segregated my long form Whitney financial videos from my personal ones of the shorts, but I was looking through and I actually have some older videos from a while back on there, but I'm gonna clean it up. It's on the list, the to-do list. Anyhow, never too busy for referrals. Hit the share button, send it to your friends, colleagues, anyone you think would find it interesting, your family, your loved ones. We're always never too busy for referrals, even if it's a share on our channel. Also, don't forget to hit the thumbs up because the algorithm is going to help. I need all the help I can get. Other than that, this is the KRISTOPHER KW podcast. KW speaking, signing out, and I'll see you next time.